why would the CCP be so afraid of Shen Yun? Why would they try so hard and like everything in your power to stop our performance? It's one of my dreams to be able to go back to China and to perform. So whenever China becomes a free country and I can actually freely practice my faith there, I would love to go back to China, to go back to where my culture comes from. Find the people who are actually in Shen Yun, because we have hundreds of people here who are still with Shen Yun, and we're happy to be here.
Today we're talking with William Lee, a veteran Shen Yun dancer. We're getting his reaction to a recent article criticizing Shen Yun and his experience in over a decade with the company. I'm Lee Shai Lemish, and this is Shen Yun Voices. Will, these articles that came out about Shen Yun, have you read them?
I did read the articles, and my initial reaction is the same as a lot of the other dancers too at Shen Yun. We're really surprised and sad by what we saw on the article because it is completely the opposite of what we've experienced at Shen Yun. And I've been here for such a long time, over a decade working with Shen Yun. And before that, I was in Feitian as a student on Practicum. So I've had a lot of experience working at Shen Yun, and it's just the opposite of what's depicted in that article.
What, for example, do you feel is an opposite?
A lot of the things in the article, unfortunately, is just not quite true from my experience. For example, like dancers needing medical treatment and getting refused medical treatment.
Is there a problem in Shen Yun of dancers performing injured or not being allowed medical treatment?
Whenever we see signs that a dancer has some sort of injury, we want them to get treated right away or to start that process of treatment right away. So especially during our off season where we're training on the campus, we see signs that someone is getting, like, you may maybe hurt, they have a little bit of discomfort. We want them to get it taken care of right away. So this way they'll be prepared for the performance. So we would never recommend for a dancer to dance while being hurt.
What about on tour?
Yeah, you would only aggravate it. And on tour, it's even more so the case. If somebody is injured, we would change our formation and then remove them from the performance because you're gonna, first of all, hurt yourself more if you're already hurt and you're trying to perform. And two, you're gonna affect the performance negatively. So people are paying money to come see the show, and we have to be professional about it. We have to put on the best performance every single night. So we don't want an injured dancer who's not going to be at their best on stage performing.
Do you know of any dancers who were not allowed to get medical treatment or discouraged?
There are no dancers that I have known of that have been discouraged to seek medical treatment. And recently, there's actually a girl in my class. She is a principal dancer, and she also has, she actually didn't get a serious injury, but just a very minor injury. Her knee is hurting. And then she got an MRI, and she noticed that there was a small tear. So all she luckily had to do is get a few weeks of rest. And, as a teacher, I asked her to sit out. I prefer, she focus on recovery first, get better, and then she'll be more ready for tour when that time comes around.
What would you say to people who say, well, that's your experience, what about other people?
I think throughout all the companies, we want our dancers to be healthy. And that's, why we're successful. Like, if you have a bunch of dancers who are injured, that's not going to work out for a performance that's world class. You're not going to have the best effect on stage, and your dancers are going to get hurt. In the long run, you're going to have less and less dancers who are able to perform at their peak. So, of course, I would say everyone wants our dancers to be healthy. It's just very normal, very logical to keep your dancers healthy for a performing arts company.
We see firsthand, if this happens, people are treated right away. There's no messing around that situation. People can't walk if you rupture an Achilles.
Yeah.
You can't just keep performing. That's impossible.
Yeah, of course. And an Achilles rupture is a very serious injury, but it's actually quite common as well, especially amongst dancers. Those injuries, you have to get it treated right away, or it's not good for your career, afterwards if you want to continue dancing.
What about between the dancers, in terms of just staying healthy, preventing? Or do you guys talk about there's certain things that you do in terms of your routines, your preparation that you, as a teacher or as a fellow dancer, enforce?
Of course. I see a lot of students, you can kind of tell when they're a little bit off that day. So some of my students, we're preparing for a dance competition right now. It's within the school, and I'm a teacher at the school as well. So I'm helping a lot of them with preparing for the competition. And of course, I want them to run through their pieces. But when I see that they're a little bit off, I'm like, okay, today you look kind of tired. Then I don't want you to do out your technical movements. Just do out your dance movements, and then don't do your jumps. You can mark it today, and then once you're feeling better, go back into it. That's just, I don't want to push them to the point where, you'll hurt yourself. Then you're gonna delay, your improvement, and then you're gonna affect. If you have to, go on tour as Practicum as a student, then that's gonna affect your performance. And that's also one of the great chances as a student at Feitian, at Feitian College. If you're really good at what you do, at dancing and music, then you do get the opportunity to go on tour. So I don't want to, prevent them from having that opportunity.
One of the other things that came out in the article, you touched upon this just now, was this idea of students on Practicum performing, how young people are, like they talk about people coming in pretty young. When did you start dancing?
I started training at quite a young age, 13, but I know a lot of, if you were wanting to be a dancer in like China, let's say, you might start even younger. And when I first started training at Feitian when I was 13, just a little bit of like that whole process, like dance was really hard for me at the beginning because I was like, I was a little bit out of shape. But then, after doing training, I actually enjoyed it. And then a lot of the teachers praised me for being pretty coordinated and then having a little bit of dance feeling. So that did encourage me to want to, pursue dance even more. And then I found out that, okay, if you work hard, you see improvement. That's probably the first time in my life where I worked hard at anything when I started dancing. And then I got the opportunity to go on tour as part of my practicum. So at this point of like what it means is you're still a student, but you get to go on tour with some of the other Shen Yun performers. And these are professional dancers who have a lot more experience, and they kind of show you how things work. And I got to go on tour. I got to go to Japan on my first year of tour, and Korea, and I think Australia as well. So I got to see the world when I was pretty young. And it was just a really good opportunity. I got to go to all of these world-class theaters at the time. And at this point, I know in the article, they say that, okay, you're performing without pay, but you're not a performer at that point. You're not hired by Shen Yun. You're just a student on Practicum. But it's actually a really great opportunity because think about it. You go through high school and college, and you have the chance to go on Practicum if you're good. So you're getting a lot of hands-on experience. At the time, I also had a full scholarship. So the school is actually covering my tuition. They're covering my meals, my travel to all of these places around the world, hotel fees, all of that. And they're teaching me how to be a performer. It was such a great opportunity for me. Like, someone who actually wanted to learn more about dance. It was like the best chance that I could have asked for. And a lot of musicians also get that same opportunity. And then they're kind of, they're bending the truth, say, okay, you're performing in a strange show, but you're not getting paid. Well, actually, I'm getting a lot more out of it. It's free for me, and I'm learning so much, and I get this great opportunity. My meals and everything's covered, so I don't know, it's just a great opportunity, and they kind of flipped it around. Something that's really good for me, they said that it's not good. And what's even better, after I graduated from college, I got hired by Shen Yun because I have so much experience. And for me, I wanted to be with Shen Yun after school, so it was like the perfect career choice for me.
Why do you think they're saying these things?
When Shen Yun was founded in 2006, it was founded by a group of persecuted artists. These artists founded Shen Yun with the mission to revive 5,000 years of traditional Chinese culture, share that with the world, and on top of that, they can also show the world, in our performance, there's a few pieces where we depict the persecution of Falun Gong, and, they get to share the truth with the world. Unfortunately, the Chinese Communist Party has been trying to eliminate Falun Gong practitioners. They're persecuting them in China. They don't want people to have their own beliefs. They don't want people to have their own faith, and they want people to only believe in the CCP. It is something that is important because these persecuted artists didn't have a voice in China, but in America they do. The New York Times is saying that we're bad, but you had to dig a little bit deeper. Find the people who are actually in Shen Yun, because we have hundreds of people here who are still with Shen Yun, and we're happy to be here. And they interviewed 25 people, and in the article, maybe like 6 or 7 of them, they mentioned that they were unhappy.
Did you know any of the people who were mentioned in the article? Former dancers?
Like we were roommates while we were in the academy, and then we went on tour together. And then after they left, I was kind of shocked that they said these things about the company because they seemed to be very happy when they were at the company. So I don't know what changed after they left, but I guess a few of the people who were ex-Shen Yun, artists or Feitian Practicum students, maybe they didn't leave on such happy terms. So usually if you leave, maybe one of the reasons you're not up to the standards of a world-class performing arts company. So we have our standards. Unfortunately, if you're not up to par, then you can't be with the company. At least you can't, perform on stage. You can't be a musician there. And maybe you violated some of our policies. And then I think we are quite lenient, and we want to help people, want to give them chances, to improve and do better. But if you really violate our policies, then we do have to lay you off. Maybe they hold a grudge or whatnot. I don't know specifically. Haven't talked to them after, but that's what it seems to me.
And I try to think back at like what the attrition rate is, and it's like a couple of people per year, like across the company, right? Is that your impression too?
Yeah, the attrition rate is actually quite low. So the group of guys that I'm dancing with, I've been with this company, the Shen Yun touring company, for like 5-6 years now, and I've been with the same group of guys for so long. So the attrition rate is really low.
Is it common for people to say, you know what, I don't want to dance anymore, I want to do something else, or I don't like it here, I want to go? Have you had those conversations with people?
Yes, I've had those conversations. There are some people who, they don't enjoy dancing anymore at an older age. Maybe it gets really tiring. And then they're like, okay, I do want to do something else. And they're welcome to do something else. The company would actually help you find something else to do. We would do everything in our power to, set you up for another career. Maybe, like, if you still want to stay with Shen Yun, you could do production, right? There's like marketing, all of that. Or you can just, leave our campus and leave our headquarters, do something else. It's really up to your own choice. But I know a lot of people who, they're getting on in their years.
For a dancer, what's the age group for that?
I feel like for a guy, like a male dancer, once you're in your 30s, you start feeling dancing is really tough. It gets harder. Once you're in your 40, that's like, it's about time to get ready to prepare to retire. In our companies, there's quite a lot of dancers who are 36, 37. I've talked to them before. I was like, hey, are you considering like retiring anytime soon? Dancing is really tough. Like, I'm 31 this year, and I feel like it's really tiring as well. And I talked to them, and they're like, well, I really like the environment in our dance company. So they like the environment so much. Like, I love it so much here. I like just being with the guys. Like, we're so supportive of each other. And then when we rehearse, it's kind of like we're all brothers. Even though it's getting tough for them at that age, they really still want to pursue this career and continue their career in dance.
Well, why do you think the dancers become like a family?
One of the reasons is we work together like all the time, because you're doing rehearsals with, like, we have 15 guys in our company right now dancing. You're with them all the time. And then when you're rehearsing, you spend like 2 hours rehearsing a dance, and then you have to problem solve with all of these people all the time. That's what rehearsals is all about. You learn a dance piece, someone is different, sticking out, or his movements are not up to par, and then we fix it together. And then only when everyone is really good are we at the performance level. So we're working on everything together. We're like, we see this improvement and we're improving as a group. And that kind of makes a difference. It's not like you're working on yourself only and you're improving by yourself.
What about daily life, like in terms of life on tour, sharing hotel rooms or just eating together? Do you guys do that as a group, or do you tend to have smaller groups within the bigger group?
I mean, it's really free. Sometimes on tour we go and eat as a whole company together. It's like a hot pot restaurant. So it's like a huge party. It's like, okay, so that's fun. And then sometimes on our day offs, I go out with 3 or 4 guys. We take an Uber, to the best fried chicken place in the town, and then we go and eat. So, I mean, it's just, I spent so much time with these guys. And if I need anything, I know I can call them up. Like, if my car breaks down at 1 a.m., if it breaks down, I can call them. They will come.
If your Uber breaks down at 1 a.m.
They would come and, help me fix up my car, which has happened a few times before.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I'm into cars, so I was modifying my car to make it even faster. And my friends came over at 11 p.m. at night. We did the mod together, and then we went out for a ride, got some gas, and came back.
What's your relationship like with the new students coming in?
I try to recall when I was a student, the things that helped me when I was a student, encouraging words, trying to, have them be able to learn on their own, giving them the skill set that they need to learn on their own. And I think, as a teacher, I also try to remain humble. Because a lot of the dancers in my company, they're great at dancing and they do a lot of things better than me. But even though I'm the teacher, I try to learn from them as well. It's just a back and forth. We learn from each other. We help each other. That is the community that we have.
I see, sometimes we walking down the hall of the theater, I'll see you teaching dance class, and I'm wondering, that's a lot on your schedule. When do you actually find the time to train yourself?
You really have to find your own free time, but that is probably one of the most difficult things about being an instructor with Shen Yun is that you have to perform, and most of the time you're also on stage. There are some older instructors who don't have to perform. So for them, it's a little bit easier. So maybe in a few years, when I'm not on stage, I'll focus more on teaching. Yeah.
One of the things that came out in the article was they were saying work hours are really long. What's your reaction to that?
A lot of the work hours that we put in is not company work hours. It's your own free time. Like me as a dancer, I need to maintain my level of physicality. So let's say I had to teach a dance class and I had to go to rehearsals. And then after that, on my own free time, I had to go, make sure I'm in shape as well. So the hours are long if you calculate it like that, right? Because as a dancer, as an artist, you're striving for excellency. And no matter, I think if you're in this arts world, you want to do your best. You want to improve, and you see it when you work hard.
Do you think part of the article is a lack of understanding of what the life of a professional world-class dancer is like?
The way that the article came out, it felt like they were trying to twist it in a negative way. So there was a lot of bias in the way that the article was written. But look at the hundreds of performers still with Shen Yun. We were able to grow from 1 company to 8 companies. That means that the company is doing something right to attract all of these young people to want to dance, to want to perform with Shen Yun, right? So if it's really that, if it's really like Shen Yun, how it's depicted like in that article, we wouldn't have this level of success and growth.
How did you feel as a dancer?
One of the things that I did think about is, why would the CCP be so afraid of Shen Yun? Why would they try so hard and everything in your power to stop our performance? And then they've been doing it for decades. They've been contacting theaters. We have documentation of this, contacting theaters, and Chinese consulars would go to the theater and talk to the theater manager, don't have Shen Yun perform. Why would you send that person there? So what are they so afraid of? Well, I think it really goes back to the CCP trying to legitimize their power. And then Shen Yun comes along, reviving 5,000 years of traditional Chinese culture. And they don't want that, because Shen Yun has so much success. People have seen, people all over the world, wow, this is what China was really like back in the day. I didn't know about this side of China before. And the CCP, they don't want people to know about that. They do put on their performances where, they say it's Chinese culture and stuff, but it's on the surface level things. But with the Shen Yun performance, I think what really touches people is really the value in the performance. So in these stories, these legends, there's a lot of Chinese values in it. I think these are also the values that I try to live my life by. So all of these lessons and values that you can learn from Chinese history, that's what we show in our performance, right? It's not just about this heroic general who's a great strategist, but it's about these values, these moral values. And then I think a lot of the performance at Shen Yun, we do try to live our lives, follow these values in our daily life.
As a performer embodying these characters, has there ever been a role or a particular story that you performed that then changed who you were in some way?
I think there's not one particular role, but just every single role that I've done, I think I learned a little bit of something. I don't know, it's just every single story has a little bit of something that you can learn from. I try to live my life this way, following these virtues and values that I've learned from history. And I think it has a positive effect on my life for sure.
What's the culture of Shen Yun like? How would you describe it?
The culture is definitely very supportive and very caring. And I think the reason for that, one reason earlier I said, we have these traditional values that we try to follow in our daily life. A lot of the people at Shen Yun also practice Falun Gong and Falun Dafa. We try to follow the principles of truthfulness, compassion, and forbearance in our daily life. And I think these values are something that is universal. And it really does change you slowly in a way when you really try to live by these values. You try to help people around you. You want to be compassionate. You want to be truthful and honest.
So if the environment is so good, then these people who left are now going on the New York Times and saying the company was not a good place to work at. Why do you think they're doing that?
The New York Times posting this article, I think I had a lot of questions in my head. You're an American company. I wonder if they have been influenced by the CCP. Because a lot of the performers that were interviewed in the article, they were very happy at Shen Yun, and then they leave, and then they start having all of these thoughts about Shen Yun. Something changed after they went to China. But the CCP has a long history of trying to take down Shen Yun and Falun Gong, And I think something did happen there where they were influenced.
Have you been back to China?
I have not been back to China ever since.
What do you think would happen?
When I first left China, I knew that if I ever went back to China, I would probably be thrown into prison. I would probably disappear. And even when I was in Canada, I told this to my friends because I practice Falun Gong, and I told my friends that I do practice this practice that is banned in China. And if I went back, I would be thrown in prison. They almost didn't believe me. They think it's unthinkable. Why don't you just give up that practice? You don't have to practice. I mean, there's a lot of things you could do in China, fun things, great food and whatnot. Why don't you want to go back? But, I think there is something that I've gained from practicing Falun Gong. It's bettered me as a person, and I don't want to give that up. The CCP is coming out saying that practicing Falun Gong is bad, but this is also something that I realized later in life as well. There's nothing wrong with having your own faith. And in America, it's a free country. You can believe in anything you want. In China, you can't believe in anything you want. There are repercussions for having your own faith. But now it's coming over to America, where the New York Times is posting an article attacking our faith, attacking Falun Gong, attacking Shen Yun. I find that to be very alarming that it's happening in the USA right now.
Do you think about going back to China sometimes?
To be honest, it's one of my dreams to be able to go back to China and to perform. So whenever China becomes a free country and I can actually freely practice my faith there, I would love to go back to China, to go back to where my culture comes from. It's really sad that I can't go back.
Yeah. You said earlier, you feel like your faith is being attacked, not unlike what's happening in China.
On that aspect of faith, there's a lot of things that are taken out of context. That is the main thing. Like, we have our own belief, our own faith, and I don't think the CCP has the right to come and attack us for our beliefs.
If you look at audience reviews, people talk about the dances depicting the persecution of Falun Gong as being the ones that most moved them, brought tears to them. But it's a small part of the show, right?
But I also think that the story of Falun Gong really does belong in the performance because, for thousands of years, people of China have believed in Buddhism, Taoism, and Confucianism. And, the CCP kind of got rid of that with the Cultural Revolution. And then Falun Gong is really a renaissance of these traditional beliefs. So it does belong in our performance, which is trying to revive traditional Chinese culture. And people, after they come to a performance, they get to see all of this great culture. And they also learn a little bit about the truth of the persecution in China, this human rights atrocity.
We saw your profile on X all of a sudden.
Yeah.
First of all, do you have an X account?
I have a Three Musketeers account, but not a personal account. So one day, one of my friends actually came up to me and they showed me on their phone. They're like, "Is this you on X?"
It was your picture.
It was my picture. They took my profile picture from the Shen Yun website. And then he was saying all of these negative things about Shen Yun. And then I didn't even want to read it because it was so nasty. And then I felt disgusted. I was like, wow, how could they do such a thing? Who would do such a thing? And my suspicion was that it was the CCP. Okay, so then I contacted X, and then I was like, okay, this is not me impersonating me, defaming the company that I work for. And X responded really swiftly. They were able to remove it.
Yeah. I heard about that. I saw it was gone the next day.
Yeah.
And it happened with a couple of accounts of people like yourself who are prominent in the company, that they were impersonating you guys and saying things that they wanted to say.
Yeah, they're trying everything nowadays. It's a part of the CCP's plan to take down Falun Gong and Shen Yun. It's one of their main priorities.
Yeah.
There was some documents leaked about that.
Yep. Yeah, we had Levi Browdy from the Falun Dafa Information Center on just the other day talking about that, how the CCP is weaponizing social media. Deliberately, there's these leaked documents saying, this is the plan from the Ministry of Public Security in China. We're going to use Western social media to eventually try to take down Falun Gong and specifically Shen Yun. And they also say they're going to try to get this into the Western press.
Yeah.
And what we're seeing also is that the people that they specifically mentioned by name in these leaked documents are the same Chinese influencers who are talking to the same people interviewed by the New York Times.
Yeah.
It's all the same group of people. And so the question is, how much of a hand does the CCP? To me, that's the question. And can we prove it? Maybe at some point we'll know exactly what happened, but the connection at the very least is crystal clear that the same people that are speaking with the people that the CCP wants to promote are the same people speaking with the New York Times, and they're communicating between them as well. this kind of group strategy that we're seeing that's showing up on their X accounts of them saying, we're going to the New York Times, we're going to talk about this, let's push this forward. And those are the people that CCP is backing.
I think the scary thing is that, on this one subject of Shen Yun, in the West and all over the world, actually, people has had a very positive, people actually watch the performance and they love the performance. And then the New York Times comes out with this one article, maybe backed by the CCP, and they're trying to influence the minds of all of these people all over the world. So if they do have that link and they do succeed, you see how they can influence other subjects and areas of importance as well.
Yeah.
Other topics are just as important, So the CCP has so much influence over the world. If that really is the case, that is pretty scary.
Yeah. I mean, are the Shen Yun dancers aware of this context? Is this something you guys are talking about?
I think a lot of dancers don't want to think so much about these things. Like, we just want to work on our craft and our discipline, and then we don't want to do anything that's political. We don't want to be involved in politics. Just let us perform. We're not even performing in China. We're not allowed to perform in China right now. We just want to, show the world what our culture is about, and then they're coming to attack us. That is really, at the base level, we're just trying to work on our art. And you're trying to stop us from, sharing our culture with the world. It's very sad. It's very frustrating as an artist.
Do you think that just sharing your culture is political?
Right now, it seems like it is, because they don't want people to see the real culture of China.
Because people, like, when they're attacking Shen, they're saying, oh, it's anti-China propaganda. How do you respond to that? That's certainly what the Chinese embassy has said all along.
I think people need to be able to differentiate the CCP and China. There's the Chinese people, Chinese culture, and there's the Chinese Communist Party. And the CCP wants you to think it's all the same, it's all one thing, but that is really not the case. Yeah.
Have you ever had like a magical experience on stage?
Like, one of the best feelings in the world is during curtain call.
Yeah.
Because throughout the performance, like, you end the piece, there's 20 different pieces almost, you end the piece and the audience is, clapping for you, and then you go off and change. But you're in the, flow of the performance, you're in the zone.
You don't have time to even soak in the applause. You're running off stage to change it to another costume.
Yeah, you had a quick change sometimes, and you have like 30 seconds.
Yeah.
So at the very end of the performance during curtain call is when you can actually take a breath and you see the audience. And I remember in Puerto Rico, that's when, like, the audience was amazing last year. Like, everyone, there's a standing ovation, the curtain is bounced, like, you come down and it has to bounce back up because the audience is still there, cheering and clapping. And that's when you see, wow, like, these people really, they understood the show, they got to see Chinese culture, and they loved it. There's such a strong reaction to it, and you have this feeling in your chest where it's actually, I feel like I'm about to cry sometimes during that moment. That is probably the magical moment for me when I see that they love the performance.
Why is that so touching for you?
I think it's also just because we put in so much hard work, and it feels like it kind of paid off at the end. Like, if you put in so much hard work for a performance and then you perform, and then it's like, it's an okay show. But that's not the reaction that we get. People love it. And that's why it feels like everything was worth it for us. All of that hard work and, all those hours rehearsing.
Now, Will, I know you got a lot going on. I'm looking forward to touring with you again this year. Middle of rehearsals right now, along with everything else that's going on. So I'll let you get back, but I really appreciate you taking the time and chatting with me.
It was a good conversation. Thank you.
Thanks.